Yes, ma'am, come on.
Dr. Witherspoon, I just wanted to, if I could, I'm a parent of 3 young men who have been students in the school district for the past 10 years. And I'm here primarily tonight because I'm concerned about the lost funds that were referenced earlier by the gentleman to my left. I've got a twofold question for you, but I want to make sure I understand your answer to him. Did I understand you to say essentially that the district has more money than it needs, and therefore the loss of this money, it has no ultimate ramification on any student?
No, that wasn't quite how I answered that.
Okay, well help me understand.
Okay. What I said was, we've had some issues in terms of expenditure and putting them in the right places, quite frankly.
Right.
And we were able to carry these dollars over to do different things, and we had to find a different fund source for that reimbursement. And we're able to do that. And what I also said was, again, having to find another fund source, and I get it, and again, did we miss a deadline? Yeah. Okay. Set down. Get it, accept it. Are we able to find a different fund source to take care of that? Yes. And also what I said ultimately is the dollars are going to students. So it actually, our Title I schools in this case are getting more than they would have gotten originally.
How is that? I'm not quite sure I understand.
Because we were able to carry those dollars over, and there were goods and services that were performed through that with that reimbursement that again we've got to take care of as well.
Assuming that funds for schools are not a bottomless pot of money, if you found the money elsewhere, it just means money didn't go to another source that had to then be redirected into that fund. Is that fair to say?
We had to find another fund source. Correct.
Right, and those funds then were depleted for some other use.
No.
Help me on that one.
Okay. You have is your budget. You set out a budget. Okay. You have carryover dollars. You have unspent dollars. You have we have various fund sources. We have various funding streams and so forth. So you're able to when you close out a year or what have you, when you have carryover and those types of things, yeah, you're able to do things. Whether that would go into general fund or reserve or what have you. So we're able to account for that.
My follow-up question then would be this. For the last 10 years as a parent of those students, I have been fortunate enough to work with the schools and the parent-teacher organizations to try and raise money for our schools. And the focus of those PTO organizations has been to get money together to buy things for the schools. Things that we have been told and understood that the school district couldn't afford. Particularly, we bought iPads. We have bought smart boards. At one point, the PTO actually funded a teacher, a computer learning person in the school. And that's because we understood that the district did not have the funds to pay for these things. I still hear it. There are booster groups raising money for the athletics in our district. There are uniforms. There are countless needs that parents are facilitating efforts to raise money for because they understand the school district can't afford it. So it is particularly disconcerting and disheartening to think about all the hours, thousands in particular by one school I've been a part of, that are essentially lost. If we worked an entire year, and many parents spent hours and hours and hours trying to raise $60,000 or $70,000 for the school, and the school just lost $3.8 million this year.
A school didn't lose $3.8 million.
The district, sorry, you're right, that's my mistake. But ultimately what I'm hearing is contradictory, and that is my concern, that the district cannot afford these things, and the parents should do what they can to help chip in and be a part of it. And yet the district seems rather cavalier in the loss of $3.8 million this year, plus another 1 point something last year. So that's my concern.
Okay, well, with all due respect, the district is not semi-cavalier about it. We have to deal with it, which we are. And, you know, again, we appreciate what you all have done as a booster club to support a particular school. And what I will say, again, is those 20 schools got more. So we're not being cavalier about it. Nobody is. We've acknowledged that. But are we able to spend additional dollars on those students as we work through this? Yes. And I go back to what I said earlier, in that what do we have fund balance and on all of that to do is to serve students. That's what I'm saying. So to say that 20 schools, okay, we wasted $3.1 million. No, we didn't make waste. Those students are getting devices. They're getting more books and so forth for literacy. They're getting access to an AVID program that we didn't have before. So I would disagree wholeheartedly. We wasted. No. Because those students deserve as well. They deserve as well.
Agreed.
And those parents.
Absolutely.
So, but I appreciate your comment. Respectfully disagree. Yes, ma'am.
Am I correct, sir, that those funds that were not collected from the federal government because of the failure to file had to then be collected from the general fund,
We had to find a different fund source.
which was the general fund?
We're still working through that.
Okay, but it has to come from the general surplus.
It has to come from other funds. Could be
Okay,
general
which could
fund,
then
could
be
be
from
other.
athletic funds
No,
or.
ma'am. It could be from other places, and then we have the opportunity to determine that. But it will not come from anything that was previously allocated to something.
Right, but
So
it was
we
something
can't
that
sit-
could be allocated to something else.
Anything could be allocated
Right.
for something.
But it won't be allocated to something else because now it has to be allocated
It
to
may
Title
not
I.
have been allocated to something else in the first place.
Okay.
Okay.
Well, let me ask you this.
Sure.
I am not a teacher and not an educator. I'm an attorney, and my only perspective is that. And as an attorney, I have procedural rules that I have to follow, and I'm
Yes.
sure many of you understand what statute of limitation is. And as an attorney, that's something I have to follow. If I don't follow it, my client loses their rights. And if I, as an attorney, miss a statute of limitations, my client loses all rights. I end up getting sued by my client for malpractice. And if I lost $3.1 million for my employer, I would be fired. No questions asked. I would also be sued by my client for malpractice. So if I had done that for 2 years in a row, first of all, I couldn't have done that for 2 years in a row. I don't understand how the district did not have procedural backups in place when the first $1.4 million was not spent the first year. Can you explain to me?
Well, what I will do, you're an attorney. What we'll do at the end, I'll have you speak with our attorney.
No,
But let me say this. Let me say this.
No,
We had things in place, and I understand, folks. We here we want to answer this. But again, I want to ensure. When I don't have and say this, when I don't have the luxury, okay, did we have systems, and this was covered, and please understand, folks, I covered this at the board meeting.
would anyone like to hear why?
This was
Would
this
anyone
was
here
covered.
like to hear why this money was
Yes,
lost?
absolutely.
Okay.
And as I said, yes, there was a deadline that was missed.
Why?
But there's
Why?
also there's also a personnel aspect to this that I can't talk about.
Why? We're taxpayers. We're telling you what it is.
But I'm not to say, what I can't say also is, here are some personnel process and things that are going on right now as well, as a part of that.
Well, let me ask you this. Again, in corporate America, if anybody lost this amount of money from their
Understood.
employer, they would be fired,
Understood.
as with their staff. So
Understood.
why should the taxpayers of Richland One not request that you and your staff not be fired or ask for your resignation as a result of this?
We are in the middle of the personnel issue with this as well.
Are you willing to resign as
We
a
are
result
in the
of
middle
this?
of the personnel issue, personnel.
Are you
matter.
willing to resign as a result of this colossal failure?
Thank you, I've answered your question.
No, sir,
Next
you
question.
haven't. Are you willing to resign?
Next question, please.
Are you willing to resign?
Next question, please.
What you all like to know is he willing to resign?
Yes.
Okay. Next question. All right, thank you all so very much for coming. We certainly do appreciate it.